look at my Wordle project here, along with the entry box that I have been using all along. There's also this virtual keyboard that I can use to, interact with the game. So, for example, let's say I want to try party, Party. Everything works exactly the same. So it's as though I entered from the keyboard. When I click guess, I get all these letters forming. And you notice the text box has been cleared again so that I can try out the next letter. So next word. So let's say I tried music. Music. Again, I can enter the guess button, and I know that T and C are around, but just that they're in the wrong position. So in this video, we'll see how we can get this basic keyboard in place, and then later on we'll enhance this further to get some more interesting effects. Clearly, we are enhancing the Wordle project from the YByte Python curriculum available at www.ybyte.in. Like I said, in this video, we'll see how we can form this keyboard. Not hard at all. This kind of similar to what we were doing in the calculator project, and similar ideas will be used. So I get back to my project, over here, which I had been developing. Remember, we built the hint and the help feature. Now, in order to get the keyboard, the virtual keyboard, basically, I'm going to add one more frame to this, and I will have to resize the window a little bit to accommodate all of that. Also, in that frame, I will put all the buttons as I had shown. In fact, some of the infrastructure is already there. So I'll just come in here. I'll, basically create a new frame to hold my let's say so let me just copy a little bit of this code. So I'll just take this code here. So below this HH frame, which is my sort of, let's say, the hint and help frame, let me just do it over here. So I just call, let's say, keyboard frame. So I just say, okay, let me call it KB frame. Say KB frame, KB standing for keyboard. Obviously, this has to go in the window, and this is fine, let it be like this. However, the important bit is now this must be in row number 2. And just like, the help and let's say help and hint frame, this also should span 2 rows. So I would stick with this, right? So this should give me the new frame. Now, having defined this frame, I need to create an array of buttons. Now, if you think about it, the problem statement now is almost same as what we did when we placed this array of labels. In fact, this is where I'm going to start with. So I'll just go get this entire code, and we'll obviously modify this a little bit. So I put it here, and I just go and say, well, grid of, say, buttons. Now we will start, with this. Remember, this was 3 columns and n number of rows, but here I'm going to put 13 columns and 2 rows. So I just make this 13. Most importantly, I will have to change this to KB frame, because this we'll start with labels, must form, let's say, inside the KB frame. Now we will just leave it as it is. In fact, I don't need to update this into the letter labels list, because that is not what we want. In fact, we're going to change this to buttons, but let's just get a sense of where we are by doing this. When I run this, you notice that the labels are forming, but clearly I need to make this a little bit bigger. So in order to accommodate the, the all the labels here, I have resized this window. So I made it 400 times 500. It'll look a little bit of space on the right, but that's okay. You can adjust this. But now importantly, remember that these were not meant to be labels. In fact, these were meant to be buttons. So I'll just go here and I'll, convert these labels inside, my KB frame. So this has to be grid of buttons. I'll just call it, let's say, KB underscore PTN. And this has to be TK dot, say, BUTTON. And again, this KB button, I'm going to place it in the grid, right? So again, let's see this working. Now, since it's a button, I'm not going to use this field at all, right? So with this in place, I think the button should form quite nicely. When I look at this, in fact, it looks pretty cool. The buttons have occupied the entire space, and my keyboard is now ready. Remember, however, that for these buttons to be functional, I must bind all of these to a function. Since there are many of these basically doing the same thing, I am going to use the lambda command to make sure that I'm able to pass an argument into that function. Now, again, like I said, this is very, very similar to what we were doing in the calculator project. In the calculator project also, we had the same situation, multiple buttons calling the same function, and lambda came to our rescue. So that's exactly what I'm going to do over here. I am going to come in and I'm going to say, look, um, command is, so after this border width, for each of these, I go and say command is equal to, so I'm going to create a mapping here, x equals to kk, and so I need to be careful, lambda x to kk, and map this to, let's call it as a key click, and say letters x. Now this is very interesting, in fact. What's going on here, basically I'm saying that, look, I'm going to create a function called key click, that is going to take, have I got an extra, oh no, this is correct, right? So I'm going to, so now this is very, very interesting to think about. We are saying that, look, I'm going to create a function called key click, which is going to take letters, as an argument. So like A, B, C, D, and so on. Now, in order to get the correct letter, I'm assigning X to the KK, which is running variable in this, in this for loop. And I'm calling then letters X. So basically, like, this will be A, this will be B, and so on and so forth. Because remember, letters is a list, letters a string, sorry, which contains all these letters A until Z. So when I do this, all I need to do is to come in and create a function. So I'll just create a new one. I'll just call it as a def, say key click, and let's say, letter, say key. So I'm just saying that, okay, which is the key that I'm clicking. Now remember that key, easiest way. Now remember that key must end up as though I enter it from my laptop keyboard. So to do this, I just go and say, well, entry box dot insert. So I'm going to use this interesting, tk inter function, tk dot end, and the letter key. So now what this will do basically is that it's like telling that, look, insert this key that you're getting at the end of what you have in there. So basically, it will. So for example, if I put P, I'll end up with the P here. Now I go and click an A will end up here, and so on and so forth. So basically, once I do this, the game can pretty much go on as usual. Let's see this working. So now, for example, let's say I want to enter music. So I enter M. Notice M has reached here. I enter a U. U has reached here. Now, in case you wonder what happens if I click guess now, well, it's exactly the same as me giving, let's say, only M and U from the keyboard. Once I complete this letter and it's a valid word, so let's say music, if I click on guess now, it's going to behave exactly as though this input had come from, let's say, my laptop. Now, let's say I want to guess my next word. Of course, I can go and clear this up from my laptop keyboard. But the other thing that I can also do is that the moment I update my labels over here with the guess button, I can go and delete this completely so that I'm ready for the next word. And that's in general good. So what I can do is that in my get word function, which was my basic function, over here, I can go and put a command, say, basically, entry box dot delete, and I'm going to say 0 to tk dot end, and basically, in simple words, this will clean up the entire box once a letter has been put in. So for example, now let's say I try music again, one music. I click guess. You notice that music appeared here, but now the box is ready once again. So I can try, for example, let's say, honed, HO, say, let's say, NED. If I try to guess, well, turns out that, I've got NSNI. Let's try one more, let's say if I try party, PARTY. If I guess, well, I've got A in the right place. So, we can go ahead and now we can obviously go and solve this game completely, but you see how with this virtual keyboard, we explored a little bit more in Python and tkinter, and we enhanced the project by giving a new interface for the player to, let's say, interact with the game. As always, building activities, enhancing them is a good way to learn programming. We learn a lot of concepts when we apply our, ideas to our projects. Look at our website, www.ybyte.in, because this is how we learn Python programming. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.